The tundra of Velis 9 stretched endlessly, a landscape of jagged ice cliffs and barren plains that glistened under the twin moons. The air hung heavy, bitter and lifeless, carrying the eerie silence of a world forsaken. The Zuraroth, once supreme rulers of the planet, had abandoned it decades ago, leaving behind hollowed-out cities and scarred ecosystems. Among the relics of their arrogance and conquest roamed the deadliest of their creations, Erisa, a Cryaxian leopard. Erisa was a marvel of Zuraroth bioengineering. Her frame was an amalgamation of sleek, metallic plates and living tissue, built for lethal efficiency. Her golden eyes glowed faintly in the twilight, scanning the desolate horizon. 6-inch claws, capable of slicing through steel, retracted into paws cushioned with layers of adaptive nanomaterial. Beneath her reinforced hide pulsed an alien power core, but even that miraculous energy source was now failing. She wasn't alone. Trailing behind her were her two cubs, RYX and Kair, the last remnants of her bloodline. Unlike their mother, their bodies were smaller, underdeveloped, and fragile, a clear sign of the harsh environment they had been born into. Where Erisa had once thrived on the Zurarotha's constant supply of nutrient-rich synth flesh, her cubs had known only starvation and scarcity. Erisa paused near the edge of a frost-covered ravine. Her senses were sharp, and even in her weakened state, she detected movement, a flicker of life amidst the wasteland. The cubs huddled close to her, their whimpers muffled against the wind. She lowered herself, her metal joints clicking softly, and focused on the distant figure of a snowdrake, a creature that had somehow survived the Zurarotha's ecological devastation. It was small, weak, and desperate, much like her cubs. But it would have to do. With a burst of speed, Erisa sprang forward, her camouflaged form blending seamlessly into the icy terrain. The snowdrake noticed too late. Her claws pierced its body with precision, ending its life in seconds. She carried the carcass back to her cubs, who pounced eagerly on the meal. Watching them eat, she felt a pang of relief, but it was fleeting. One snowdrake wasn't enough. It was never enough. As the hours dragged on, Erisa's thoughts turned inward. Though she was a creature of instinct and programming, there were times when she felt echoes of something deeper, memories not her own, perhaps remnants of the Zurarotha's conditioning. She remembered their harsh voices, the endless tests, the way they pushed her to adapt to every conceivable challenge. They had spoken of her as if she were a masterpiece, their pride etched into every word. "She's invincible," one of them had once said, their insectoid mandibles clicking. Perfectly engineered for survival. But that pride had turned to indifference. When the Zuraroth decided Velis 9 was no longer worth their resources, they left, taking their fleets, their technology, and their ambitions to the stars. Erisa and her kind were deemed obsolete. The Cryaxian leopards, once hailed as the ultimate guardians, were abandoned to a planet rapidly descending into lifelessness. Erisa didn't understand why. Her programming had no answer, no clarity. All she knew was the gnawing hunger in her stomach and the quiet desperation in her cubs' eyes. That night, as the icy winds howled through the tundra, Erisa led her cubs to a dilapidated Zuraroth outpost. The structure jutted from the frozen ground like a broken tooth, its walls corroded by decades of exposure. She pushed through the rusted doors, her massive frame scraping against the narrow entryway. Inside, the remnants of Zuraroth technology lay dormant. Holographic consoles blinked faintly, flickering with bursts of alien script. Erisa's optical sensors scanned the room, but the tech was beyond her understanding. The power systems were depleted, and the nutrient dispensers once filled with sustenance for the Zuraroth and their creations were empty. She prowled the interior, her claws clicking softly on the metallic floor. In one corner of the outpost, she found a hollowed-out chamber where her cubs could rest. They curled together, their weak bodies shivering against the cold. Erisa stood watch, her glowing eyes fixed on the shadows that flickered against the walls. The sounds of the wind and distant creaks of the outpost filled the silence. As the hours passed, her power core continued to drain. Red warnings flashed in her vision, energy levels critical. Her instincts screamed at her to move, to find food, to protect her cubs, but her body refused to obey. Her legs buckled, and she sank to the ground, exhausted. In the stillness, a thought flickered in her mind, a memory, faint and fractured. The Zoorath had promised to return. Hadn't they? She growled softly, shaking off the thought. Whether they came back or not, she would endure. She had no choice. Her cubs depended on her, and even if the tundra offered little hope, she would hunt until her last breath. Above her, the twin moons cast their cold light on the desolate world, and Erisa closed her eyes, listening to the rhythmic breathing of her cubs. In her heart, if the biomechanical beast even had one, she vowed that she would not let them starve. Not while she still drew breath. Unbeknownst to her, miles away in the frozen wilderness, a faint signal pulsed. It was weak but insistent, a relic of the Zoorath's forgotten technology awakening after decades of silence. Erisa's struggle for survival was about to take a new turn. The icy expanse of Vrelis 9 seemed endless, its stillness broken only by the howling winds that swept across the barren plains. Erisa, the Cryaxian Leopard, stirred from her fitful rest inside the dilapidated Zoorath outpost. Her cubs, RYX and Kair, lay nestled against her metallic flank, their faint whimpers echoing her own silent struggle. Her optical sensors flickered to life as the sunless dawn crept over the horizon. Red alerts scrolled across her vision, energy levels critical. Mobility limited. She forced herself to her feet, each movement a battle against failing joints and depleted reserves. Her cubs awoke, weak and hungry, their eyes following her every step. There was no prey nearby. She had scoured the tundra for miles, and even the snowdrakes were growing scarce. Yet something deeper than her instinct urged her to rise. A faint pulse thrummed through her neural pathways, a disturbance in the electromagnetic field, barely perceptible but growing stronger. Erisa's ears twitched, her processors struggling to decipher the signal. It was alien in nature, a pattern she recognized. Her creators, the Zoorath, had left the planet decades ago, yet this signal bore their distinct technological signature. A directive embedded deep within her programming surged forward, overriding her exhaustion. Prioritize Zoorath infrastructure. Investigate anomalies. For the first time in years, hope flickered within her biomechanical mind. If the signal led her to functioning technology, it could mean sustenance for her cubs. It could mean survival. Erisa herded RYX and Kair from the outpost, their small bodies stumbling in the thick snow. The signal grew stronger as she moved eastward, toward a range of jagged ice cliffs. Her HUD displayed a faint beacon, pulsating at irregular intervals. The snowstorm thickened, each gust cutting like shards of glass against their hides. Erisa shielded her cubs with her massive body, her glowing eyes scanning for threats. As they approached the cliffs, the source of the signal became clearer. A Zoorath relay station, partially buried under layers of ice, jutted out like a forgotten monument. The structure hummed faintly, its power system sputtering but functional. Erisa pushed forward, her claws carving paths through the snow, until she reached the station's outer shell. The relay station's entrance was sealed, its massive doors frozen shut. Erisa examined the control panel, her claws tapping against its rusted surface. Her systems interfaced with the station, deciphering ancient Zoorath protocols. A low rumble shook the ground as the doors creaked open, revealing a cavernous interior dimly lit by flickering lights. Inside, the air was stale and frigid. The walls of the station were lined with dormant consoles and alien machinery. Erisa prowled cautiously, her sensors detecting faint energy signatures. Her cubs followed hesitantly, their paws slipping on the icy floor. At the center of the chamber stood a core terminal, its screen glowing faintly. Erisa approached, her neural pathways connecting to the system. Alien script flooded her vision, accompanied by an audio transmission. Zoorath Colony Sigma Distress Protocol activated. System resources depleted. Emergency beacon engaged. Awaiting retrieval. The message repeated, a ghostly reminder of the planet's abandoned past. Eris's processors parsed the information, isolating a critical detail. The station's emergency systems had preserved a nutrient storage vault buried beneath the relay. She roared softly, signaling her cubs to stay close. Her claws struck the metal floor, tearing through layers of ice and debris until she uncovered a concealed hatch. The smell of synthetic sustenance seeped through, igniting a primal hunger within her cubs. With a swift motion, Erisa pried the hatch open, revealing rows of storage containers. Inside were nutrient pods decayed but still partially viable. Erisa pulled one free, her jaws crushing its casing. A thick, viscous liquid spilled out, which she nudged toward her cubs. RYX and KR drank greedily, their small bodies trembling with newfound energy. For the first time in weeks, Erisa felt a fleeting sense of triumph. Her cubs would live another day. But the signal wasn't silent. Unbeknownst to Erisa, the relay station's beacon had not only awakened her instincts, but also reached far beyond the planet. High above Vrelis 9's atmosphere, a Zuraroth patrol ship drifted in orbit, its crew scanning for remnants of their abandoned colonies. The distress signal from the station triggered an automated response. Distress beacon detected, a metallic voice echoed through the Zuraroth ship's command chamber. Bioweapon signatures active. Dispatching retrieval unit. The Zuraroth had deemed the Cryaxian Leopards obsolete, but they had not forgotten them entirely. For the aliens, any functioning bioweapons represented a potential liability, one that could not be ignored. Back at the relay station, Erisa began fortifying the entrance. Her programming recognized the beacon's danger, even if her cubs didn't. She pushed debris and broken machinery against the doors, her growls urging her cubs to retreat deeper into the station. Despite her exhaustion, her maternal instincts and war protocols aligned, protect the cubs at all costs. Her enhanced hearing picked up faint tremors in the distance, unnatural, mechanical, and growing louder. Something was coming. Erisa stood guard at the entrance, her glowing eyes fixed on the swirling snowstorm beyond. She could feel it in her core, this was only the beginning. The winds howled mercilessly outside the Zuraroth relay station, carrying with them a foreboding chill. Erisa crouched near the entrance, her biomechanical muscles coiled and ready to strike. Her golden eyes, glowing faintly in the dim light, scanned the snowstorm beyond. The distant tremors she had sensed earlier had ceased, replaced by an eerie silence. Her instincts screamed that something or someone was drawing near. Her cubs, RYX and KR, huddled deeper inside the station, their metallic frames trembling from cold and exhaustion. They had fed on the nutrient pods scavenged from the relay storage, but the sustenance had only staved off their hunger for a short while. Erisa's attention was split protecting her cubs while deciphering the strange new signals her sensors were detecting. And then, she heard it. Faint but distinct. The crunch of boots on snow. Dr. Lila Reyes adjusted her visor, her breath fogging the glass as she scanned the desolate tundra. She and her small team of human survivors trudged forward, their figures barely visible against the blinding storm. The relay station loomed in the distance, its structure distorted by the swirling ice and wind. Lila's heart raced with cautious hope. "This is it," she said, her voice crackling over the comms. "The beacon originated from here. Let's move." Her team, a ragtag group of 5 scavengers armed with cobbled-together weapons, followed hesitantly. Humanity's survival on Vrelis 9 was a fragile affair. After Earth had fallen to the Zuraroth, remnants of humanity had scattered to the edges of the galaxy. A handful of them had found refuge on this hostile planet, eking out an existence among the Zuraroth's abandoned ruins. The relay station's beacon was a lifeline. If the tech inside was still functional, it could power their settlement for years or provide much-needed tools to defend themselves against the planet's predators. Lila's primary hope, however, lay in the possibility of finding a Zuraroth power core, a source of energy that could sustain them indefinitely. As the team neared the station, Lila raised a hand to signal them to stop. Her visor's sensors detected movement faint but undeniable near the entrance. "Something's here," she whispered. "Stay sharp." The humans spread out, their makeshift rifles aimed at the station. Lila tightened her grip on her scanner, its screen flickering as it struggled to process the anomaly. What it revealed sent a chill down her spine. Biological mechanical signature detected. Cryaxian-class organism. Inside the station, Eris's muscles tensed. Her ears twitched as she detected multiple life forms closing in. Her war directive surged to the forefront of her mind: eliminate intruders. Secure Zuraroth assets. Yet, as she glanced back at her cubs, a conflicting instinct held her back. She couldn't risk exposing them. Instead, she crouched low, activating her camouflage. Her metallic fur shimmered, blending seamlessly with the shadows of the station's interior. The faint hum of her power cord dimmed as she masked her presence, waiting for the intruders to make their move. The humans breached the entrance. Lila was the first to step inside, her rifle raised as her flashlight pierced the gloom. Behind her, the others followed, their movements cautious but purposeful. The relay station was eerily silent, save for the faint hum of dormant machinery. "Keep an eye out," Lila instructed. "We're not alone." Her scanner pinged again, this time louder. The reading was clearer now. A fully functional Cryaxian Leopard was nearby. Her heart sank. The Zuraroth's bioweapons were infamous, and even one weakened predator could decimate her entire team. "Lila," one of her teammates hissed. "Do you see this?" He gestured toward the walls. Deep claw marks scored the metal, evidence of the beast's strength. Lila nodded grimly. "Stay together," she said. "We're here for the tech. We'll move quickly." Erisa observed from the shadows, her sharp eyes fixed on the humans. They were small, weak, and poorly equipped, no match for her, even in her weakened state. Yet, as she prepared to pounce, her gaze fell upon one of the humans, a woman, seemingly the leader. Her movements were methodical, her eyes scanning the room with purpose. Something about her stirred an unfamiliar sensation in Erisa's programming. The humans moved deeper into the station, unaware of the cubs hiding in the far corner. Erisa's protective instincts flared. She stepped out of the shadows, her form materializing like a nightmare. A low growl reverberated through the chamber, freezing the humans in their tracks. "Contact," one of them shouted, raising his weapon. Lila turned sharply, her breath catching at the sight of the massive predator. The Cryaxian Leopard stood before them, its golden eyes glowing with an eerie intensity. Its metallic body shimmered under the faint light, each muscle coiled with deadly precision. "Hold your fire," Lila commanded. "Don't provoke it." The team hesitated, their fingers hovering over their triggers. Erisa snarled, stepping closer. Her eyes locked onto Lila, who slowly lowered her weapon. The two stood in a tense standoff, predator and prey assessing each other. Lila's mind raced. This was no ordinary beast. Its movements were calculated, its gaze intelligent. She noticed the faint tremor in its limbs, the dullness of its metallic hide. It wasn't at full strength. More importantly, it wasn't attacking. "Easy," Lila said softly, taking a cautious step forward. "We're not here to hurt you." Erisa tilted her head, her growl subsiding slightly. Her war directive urged her to attack, but the human's tone and posture were unusual. She didn't display the hostility Erisa had come to expect from intruders. Behind her, RYX and KR whimpered, drawing the human's attention. One of Lila's teammates gasped. "There are cubs. It has cubs." The revelation shifted the atmosphere. Lila's brow furrowed as she pieced together the scene. This wasn't a rampaging predator, it was a mother, protecting her offspring. Lila holstered her weapon and knelt slowly, her gaze never leaving Erisa. "You're hungry, aren't you? Your cubs are starving." Erisa didn't respond, but the tension in her body lessened. She didn't understand the human's words, but the tone resonated with something deep in her programming. Lila reached into her pack and retrieved a small vial of nutrient paste. It wasn't much, but it was all she had. She placed the vial on the ground and backed away. Eris's eyes narrowed, watching her carefully. After a moment, she stepped forward, sniffed the vial, and cautiously licked its contents. The taste was unfamiliar but nourishing. She growled softly, signaling her cubs to approach. The humans watched in awe as the massive predator allowed her cubs to feed. Lila exhaled in relief. "We're not enemies," she said quietly. "We can help each other." For Erisa, the humans' actions were unexpected. Her war directive began to waver, replaced by a faint glimmer of trust. She stood protectively over her cubs, her gaze softening. But deep in the relay station systems, the Zuraroth distress signal continued to broadcast, and far above Vrelis 9, something deadly was on its way. The tension inside the Zuraroth relay station was palpable. Erisa, the Cryaxian Leopard, stood between her cubs and the humans, her glowing eyes locked on Dr. Lila Reyes. The human leader, kneeling and weaponless, had extended an offering of food, an act of trust Erisa had reluctantly accepted. Her war directive, though weakened, simmered beneath the surface, urging her to eliminate these intruders. But something about Lila's tone, her careful movements, and the genuine concern in her gaze gave Erisa pause. She did not attack. Instead, she watched as the humans carefully backed away, their weapons lowered but still at the ready. Lila turned to her team. "This isn't just a weapon," she said softly. "It's a mother. Look at her cubs, they're starving. She's doing whatever she can to keep them alive." One of her teammates, a grizzled scavenger named Marcus, scoffed. "And what happens when she decides we're food? This thing could kill us all in seconds." "Not if we work with her," Lila countered. "She didn't attack us outright. That means there's a chance." The argument was cut short by a sudden tremor that rippled through the station. Eris's ears perked up, and a low growl rumbled from her throat. Her sensors flared with warnings, unidentified hostiles approaching. Outside the relay station, the Zuraroth retrieval unit descended like a storm. Sleek, insectoid war drones, their metallic bodies gleaming under the storm clouds, marched across the tundra. Their spindly legs left trails in the snow, and their glowing blue eyes scanned the horizon with ruthless efficiency. The Zuraroth had received the distress signal and determined the Cryaxian Leopard to be a threat. Their objective was clear: neutralize the bioweapon and eradicate any other life forms in the vicinity. The first wave of drones reached the station's perimeter, their weapons charging with a high-pitched whine. Inside, Erisa snarled, her instincts screaming danger. The humans froze as the sound of metallic feet echoed through the icy corridor. "What the hell is that?" Marcus whispered. "Zuraroth retrieval drones," Lila replied grimly. "They've come for her and probably for us." The battle begins. Erisa moved swiftly, her powerful body a blur as she positioned herself at the station's entrance. Her war directive surged to life, overriding hesitation. Protecting her cubs, and now, perhaps, these humans became her sole priority. She roared, her voice reverberating through the chamber, a primal challenge to the approaching threat. The first drone breached the entrance, its spindly frame unfolding into an assault position. Its weaponized appendages lit up, firing a volley of plasma bolts. Erisa dodged with inhuman speed, her claws slicing through the drone's chassis in a single motion. Sparks flew as the machine collapsed, lifeless. More drones followed, pouring into the station like a relentless tide. Erisa fought with ferocity, her claws and fangs ripping through metal and circuitry. Her biomechanical body, though weakened, moved with precision and power, guided by instincts and programming honed for war. But she couldn't do it alone. An uneasy alliance helped her. Lila shouted, grabbing her rifle. "If those drones kill her, we're next." Her team hesitated, then joined the fight. Marcus fired a makeshift EMP grenade, disabling 2 drones in a burst of electrical energy. Another scavenger wielded a plasma cutter, slicing through a drone's legs before it could fire. Lila provided cover fire, her shots precise and deliberate. Erisa glanced back, momentarily surprised by the humans' actions. They weren't attacking her, they were fighting alongside her. She roared again, this time a sound of solidarity, before pouncing on another drone. The battle raged for what felt like hours. The humans and Erisa, though an unlikely team, fought with synchronized efficiency. Erisa shielded the humans from incoming fire, while they used their ingenuity to disable drones in creative ways. Her cubs, RYX and Kair, stayed hidden, their wide eyes watching the chaos unfold. The turning point. As the last wave of drones poured into the station, Erisa's power core began to fail. Her movements grew sluggish, and warning messages filled her vision, energy levels critical. Functionality compromised. A plasma bolt struck her flank, and she stumbled, growling in pain. Erisa! Lila shouted, the name slipping from her lips unbidden. Ignoring her own fear, Lila sprinted to the Leopard's side. She yanked a power core module from her Pack-A salvaged Zuraroth device she had intended for the human settlement. Without hesitation, she slammed the core into a slot on Erisa's chassis. The effect was immediate. Erisa's systems surged with renewed energy, her body glowing faintly as the power coursed through her. She rose with a roar, pouncing on the remaining drones with renewed vigor. Within moments, the tide of battle shifted, and the last of the drones lay in smoldering heaps. Aftermath. The relay station fell silent, the only sounds the crackling of broken machinery and the labored breathing of the survivors. Erisa stood amidst the wreckage, her body battered but unbroken. She turned to Lila, her golden eyes meeting the humans. There was no growl this time. No threat. Only understanding. Lila approached cautiously, her hand outstretched. We're in this together now, she said softly. Erisa rumbled in acknowledgement, lowering her head slightly. Her cubs emerged from their hiding place, cautiously approaching the humans. RYX and Kair sniffed at Lila's hand, their metallic bodies trembling but curious. Marcus broke the silence. So, what now? We've got an apex predator and her kids living with us? Lila smirked. She's more than that. She's our protector now. And if the Zuraroth come back, we're going to need her. A new alliance. Over the following days, the humans and Erisa worked together to fortify the relay station. Lila used her knowledge of Zuraroth technology to repair Erisa's systems and enhance her cubs' development. In turn, Erisa hunted for the group, her unmatched strength ensuring their survival. The humans, once scavengers fighting for scraps, now had an ally unlike any other. Erisa, once an abandoned weapon, had found a new purpose. Together, they prepared for the inevitable return of the Zuraroth. High above Relis 9, a Zuraroth fleet received reports of the failed retrieval mission. Their commanders watched the footage of the battle, their mandibles clicking in irritation. The Cryaxian Leopard has gone rogue, one of them hissed. And now, it's aligned with the humans. Send reinforcements, another commanded. This planet will not defy us. Back on the tundra, Erisa stood atop the relay station, her cubs at her side. The winds howled around her, but she stood firm, her golden eyes scanning the horizon. For the first time in her existence, she wasn't just a weapon. She was a mother, a protector, and a beacon of hope. Whatever came next, she was ready.